All right, we are live. So happy Wednesday, everyone. I'll just work on getting this Instagram to go live. There we go. We got Instagram to go live too. All right, we're rolling. How you doing, Carrie?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Welcome to Hump Day.
Yes, I know. Thank God it's Wednesday. The week's halfway over. So you're going back to Alaska. I just got back from Seattle. Beautiful weather in Seattle, although it's cloudy for until 11 or noon, which I'm not used to anymore. But then
you gotta get used to waking up to sunshine.
Exactly. But it was great to be back in Seattle, and it's just such a beautiful place. We went to a Mariners game when I got in. I rolled in, got to my parents' house, and my brother was like, "Grab your stuff. We're going to the Mariners game." I'm like, "Okay, I just rolled in."
That's funny. Yeah, it's supposed to be in the 60s in Alaska next week. So
okay, well, you should be fun.
Too bad, but yeah, gonna go fishing. So
good. All right. Well, there's a couple people joining us, so I'll go ahead and get us started. So happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome to the Dog Gurus Live. Appreciate you joining us. We love that you're watching and getting education, and we also love it when you join into our conversations. So if you have questions, feel free to write them in the chat, and we'll try to get to them. And already we have a hello from Canada, Fitzpatrick Kennels, and Alora Doggy. All right. So thank you for saying hello. We know that we're broadcasting and the sound is working. So I'm Shantae Marquez, joined with the fabulous Carrie Campbell, and we are both Profit Network coaches at the Dog Gurus. So the Dog Gurus provides pet care business education and coaching. We really love to empower pet care entrepreneurs at every stage of their business. So we're here to teach you all the tricks, passing along all that we know and have learned through expertly crafted content such as video how-tos, online training, curated modules and courses, and more.
maybe we have models.
Yeah. That's us. Yeah. You know, we want to be more than education. We really just want to be your partner in pet success. All right. So today's topic is going to be talking about KPIs. And, you know, KPIs stands for key performance indicators. And talking about this, also say hello to David because he's from Florida.
Popping in, yeah. USA.
Yeah. I know. So KPIs, key performance indicators. Let's talk about that. And we'll kind of go through this conversation and talk about the challenges, the benefits, and which ones do we track? Like, what actually are they? And what do they mean for my business? So I'm going to start by just making fun of myself, first of all, because I was somebody who for many years of my business did what I like to call entrepreneur math. And that is where, okay, I knew I had this amount of expenses for the month, and I knew I had this amount of revenue. And I was like, okay, cool, revenue is higher than expenses. Sweet, I'm profitable. And that's really kind of like not the whole story, right? Or somebody would be like, oh, so are you increasing business? Is business going good? And I would say, well, it feels like it's busy. I'm busier. But just because I'm busier doesn't mean that you're more profitable or your occupancy numbers are up. I mean, you really need data to track those things. So that's what we want to talk about today. Right, Carrie?
Yes. You can't track anything without data.
Yeah, exactly.
That really is the key to success.
So here's some of the things that we see when I know like I talk to business owners all week, every day, every week, right? And here's some of the things, like they'll tell me their goals, what their new goals are for business, or they're like, yeah, I want to get to this amount of revenue for next year. And then I ask them, okay, great. Well, what did you do? Like, what are you basing their goals on? And they're like, well, I just know that this is what I want to grow it to. But how do you know that those goals are realistic if you haven't actually tracked what you've been doing so far? Like that's one thing that I see, that people have unrealistic goals. And then what happens? They're not reaching them. And then they feel deflated and they're really bummed out, or their staff gets demotivated because, the owners are saying, hey, why aren't you reaching these goals? That's kind of one of the challenges that I see. What comes to your mind, Carrie?
Just think about it from an employment standpoint. When you've got employees that are, not meeting your expectations, is it because you haven't given them clear instructions, or is it because you're not really effectively measuring their performance? So you can start with KPIs at a very low level, and you can say that these are what's expected. We want to see, improvement with each, meeting with your leadership team and employees, and look at, kind of tracking a metric just for that, for employee attendance. Maybe it's about call outs. I mean, there's so many different things that you can track that get into the weeds of how you do business. But the more it's clear and well defined for your staff, the more they're going to be able to be empowered to meet those goals, rather than having like a pie in the sky goal that's set out there and they don't know how to actually accomplish it. So yeah, I think that there's many elements that you can track within your business that will help the overall business succeed, but they have to be clearly defined and they have to be managed. They have to be tracked. So yeah, I just think about it from a standpoint of, trying to really keep your staff involved so that it may reduce turnover, which is another thing. You could track employee turnover. I mean,
Absolutely. I think that's huge.
Literally so many things that you can track.
Well, look, in tracking employee turnover helps gauge some opportunities for improvement, right? So if you have a really high employee turnover, that's telling you something. And maybe there's somewhere in your system or management style or supervisors, there's a ton of reasons why it could be, but that would give you the information that, hey, there's opportunities for us to improve our systems. Maybe it's the onboarding and hiring system. It could be a ton of things, but that by tracking KPIs, it's going to give you insight for opportunities for growth. And it's also going to show you what's not working, but what is working. And Whitney, hello, Whitney. Thanks for joining us.
It's tangible. I think that's one of the things that when you're looking at whether something is successful or not, it's tangible data. And that's what the key is. So you're not just, again, kind of just thinking of, what did you say? I feel like business is growing.
It feels like
it is because you got the data to show it.
Yeah, I'm busy, so I must be growing.
And so one of the other things I think about when you're using that example about, maybe you have high staff turnover, maybe you do. And maybe it's because the person that you've kind of designated as your trainer may be great at their job, but they may not be an effective trainer. Maybe there's something about how they're approaching training new employees that's rubbing new employees the wrong way. And that's the issue, so if you have, higher employee turnover, try to do exit interviews, try to really dive into what your onboarding process is and see where the weak areas are that's causing the high turnover rate. And maybe it's not your system, maybe it's the lack of a system and that you don't really have onboarding procedures in place. So again, no matter how or what you choose to track as far as a KPI, that tangible data is going to give you something that is key results to help you improve your operations and your profit margin. Ultimately, that's the goal, right?
Absolutely. And I think it can help show whether your systems are efficient too. If you're finding that basically, people are spending a lot of time on doing certain tasks, maybe it's not profitable. But if you start tracking the time it's spent and the payroll dollars, that will start helping you decide that. So efficiency is a big, huge thing. So let's talk about KPIs and which KPIs that we believe are important to track. And we'll start off with occupancy rate. Yeah. I mean, that's just a given, right? How do you know you're growing? How do you know your lodging is successful or your daycare is successful and growing if you don't track the occupancy rate? And that's pretty easy. Most software systems can track that really easily for you.
Well, and you also see people who say, gosh, occupancy is down, but revenue is up. So maybe you have the same amount of dogs there, but revenue's up because you did a rate increase. The goal is that you have the rate increase plus increase in occupancy, because then you're really gaining that extra profit that you wanted. So, really making sure that you're tracking it from multiple angles.
Yeah. And for me and my business, it was never my goal to constantly be at 100% occupancy. I mean, that's really hard on the staff, consistently doing that. So, our goal was more at like a 75% occupancy and making sure that my rates were at high enough that I would still be having producing the profit margin that I wanted. So also when you do like have a goal of occupancy rate, keep that in mind. Like how much work is it for your staff? You don't want the goal to be unrealistic again and be 100% all the time.
Well, and as you start collecting this data, it's going to help you make decisions on where changes can happen. So maybe you have a 75% occupancy rating for lodging, but maybe you're going for more of like 100% during the Christmas week.
Mhm. Yeah.
But at that time, you may see a drop of 50% in your daycare. And that's okay because you're making it up on the lodging side, but you're also not having to deal with like 100% of your lodging is full and 100% of your daycare is full, because that would be a lot to tax your employees with. So, you can make those adjustments throughout the cycle, whatever it is. Are you looking at this quarterly, monthly, annually? But, use that data to help you drive good decisions.
Yep. Let's talk about revenue per pet. And I love this one because when I ask business owners, well, what's your revenue per pet? They're like, well, this is how much I charge for the service. And I said, but that's not your revenue per pet. You realize that, right? So revenue per pet is also taking into account to maybe add-ons that you're selling or discounts that you're giving. And that's a huge thing that people don't realize. And they could have a good, standard daycare or lodging rate, but if they're giving a bunch of discounts, then that is actually your true number of what you're gaining per pet per night or per daily visit.
I have seen so many people who look at their discounts and don't think it's a discount. So if you have a published rate of, for easy numbers, $50 a day, and you offer any sort of discount, which a package program is a discount, because I see people on their websites, they're like, oh, a 5-day package is, $3 off a day. So now you're charging 47 instead of $50 a day. That's $3 per dog that's on that package that you're leaving on the table every single day. So if you did your original pricing of $50 a day based on what your true fixed and variable costs are, then anytime you start offering a discount, you're going to eat into what profit margin that you budgeted based on that rate that you set. So, so I think, that's, and then, people were like, oh, well, it's a prepaid package. So, it was purchased in January, but they're not actually using it until March is when, they're going to start using it or something. Again, it's a discount. You've lost revenue coming in because you've purchased the client purchased something 2 months ago. And now in a month where you're not really getting any revenue off of that package, they're starting to redeem it. So you've got the cost to perform the service without the revenue coming in. So yeah, it's.
Speaking of packages, I want to just, while we're on the subject, recommend that people put time limits on their packages. Because I've heard from various business owners that sometimes they're like, oh, well, we don't do expiration dates. We really want to make, but somebody buying a package in January, your cost to perform that service may not be the same 6, 7, 8 months down the road. I mean, look how fast our payroll's been increasing with the wages. So I would just highly, highly recommend that any type of packages that you have to have like, a 30 or 60-day time limit on it. And plus the whole reason that you're giving a discounted package is to encourage them to come frequently. So if you're giving an infinite amount of time for them to use it, then it actually goes opposite of what you're trying to achieve.
Right. You lose money on them. So
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so this one's a good one. Labor cost as a percentage of revenue.
Yeah, this is another one too, that when you see people that I think we would be happy with anybody who's under 50%, you want to get it closer to, 46%. But right now, given the high labor costs that we're seeing and the amount of pet care businesses that are offering more high touch services like enrichment, people have been anywhere from 55 to 60% labor as a percent of revenue, of gross revenue. So Yeah, that's it. That's really difficult. But if you track it on a regular basis, then you can control it a little bit more. And I would definitely encourage your leadership team, whoever's doing your scheduling for your employees, to make sure that they're looking at the number of dogs you have in house and the number of employees they're scheduling for that day. There's going to be dogs that don't show up, and there's going to be staff that call out. So it's going to be you're short either way sometimes. But by by scheduling to, that percent, that target that you're trying to make, you're going to have an easier time attaining it than just kind of willy-nilly scheduling the
Yeah.
staff.
And then also, if you're a facility that just has a ton of walk-ins and you don't encourage your clients to actually pre-schedule their services, look, that is an opportunity for efficiency, because you can't, it's hard to manage your payroll if you don't have any idea of who's coming in. And I think obviously most people schedule their lodging. I mean, there's occasions when people have emergencies, but I think daycare is where people tend to be pretty loosey-goosey about that. Fitzpatrick Kennels says we are not allowed to use expiration dates in British Columbia. I didn't know that.
Is that a Canada-wide thing, I wonder? Or
then I wouldn't offer packages, or I wouldn't discount them. You can still package them together, but
yeah,
I wouldn't discount them. I mean, that I used to do that for my spa packages. So in order to Canada-wide, she says, in order to increase my revenue for my bathing department, we created spa packages. But you know what? I didn't discount a single item. I just basically said, okay, this is what's included. Here's the cost for it. That's going to be, we'll round up or down, but that's going to be my package price. And the customers actually were okay with it. I don't even think they did the math. I think they just wanted something easy to choose. They didn't want to have to think about everything that they wanted to add on. They just wanted easy choices.
Well, and so if you can't have an expiration date on a package and you want to offer some type of loyalty program, think if your, point of sale software, Ginger, Paw Loyalty, all of those, if they have some sort of loyalty component to them, that you can track their dollar spent. And for every dollar spent, they get, a dollar towards a certain service, or maybe they earn, a free day of daycare or something, a bath upon exit when they're lodging. So I think that there's ways that you could offer a discount for loyalty purposes without it being a package that has no expiration date on it. And I'll give a personal example of that. When the pandemic hit in March of 2020 and my daycare facility was closed because we were deemed by our municipality as not being an essential service, and we were closed for about 6 weeks. The day that I closed, I had $52,000 of prepaid packages on my books. If I had not been able to reopen my facility based on a number of factors that were going on in the crazy pandemic time right in the beginning, that's $50,000 I'm on the hook for. That's $50,000 that technically my clients could have come back and said, I want my $1,000 back for that package. So, and if you do that and there's no expiration date, then, oh my gosh, now we're talking a year from now, somebody could come back and say, by the way, I know you closed your business because of the pandemic, but you owe me $1,000. So, there's some kind of legalities to it that I think are not safe to have on your book. So you may look at coming up with a different way to manage that loyalty or those discounts.
Well, I just had an idea that you're talking, and it could be a bad idea, but I'm going to say it anyways on the spot. So what if they had, they used a loyalty points system, right? And the loyalty points equate to different benefits that the client receives. So you could have your set packages, but the packages equate to a certain level of loyalty points instead of getting a discount.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea.
That could work.
Yeah.
Depends on how good the benefits are, but I'm sure that you can make it, stuff that the clients would want. So,
good idea.
All right. Let's see. Customer retention rate. I think that's important too, because that's going to tell you really how good your care quality is. Is it pretty consistent? If you're finding that you have high attrition, then that could be a signal that there's, again, opportunities for improvements within your systems and your staffing and the care quality that you provide.
Well, and that may vary too based on location. So if you're in a rural location and you're not offering daycare, or maybe you are, but it's not as popular, you're going to see, you may have your lodging clients that only come twice a year. So, but if you start to see they're only there once a year, then okay, what's going on? What's changed? And, it's always easy to kind of reach out to clients and say, we haven't seen you in a while. What's going on? Just making a connection with them to remind them that you're there and that you're, still ready for Fido to come back and visit. So and if you're in an area that's heavily populated and you start to see an attrition in, especially in your daycare clients that are regular, then, start to dive into, so what's going on? What are they seeing? What's the perception of why they are not returning with the dog?
Yeah, and I would also track I guess I'll call it because I'm come from a background of sales, but a closing ratio. So, but I would track how many people actually not only like make a resin or make a meet and greet reservation on the phone, but after they've had that meet and greet, how many of those are actually turning into reservations? I think that's really important to understand because that's going to give you information to know like how the customers are perceiving your business. And maybe if you have a lot of people that are having meet and greets and they're actually not turning into reservations, then I think it's a good opportunity to just, say, thank you for coming out. It was lovely meeting you. Can we just ask like, what was your deciding factor to go with someone else? Because that would give you a lot of valuable feedback.
Jason asked, what time frame do you consider a client as lost? We have clients that travel just once a year.
So I thought I usually would go off 6 months, but it was more like a daycare client is kind of what we were looking at. So I think it's different looking at your client retention from your daycare services versus your lodging services. But many of my clients would use both services. So, if you have clients that aren't doing cross services, aren't actually purchasing cross services, then there's an opportunity for improvement to cross sell. What would you say, Carrie? How much time?
Well, see, for me, it was just daycare. That's what we were tracking. So I would say on the lodging side, you kind of have to look at what their habits had been, and then from there look out a year. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think depending on I was in a really busy city area, so people were traveling for work or traveling for fun or, for all sorts of reasons. So we would actually see people a lot more than once a year. But again, once they joined on to lodge with us, we would more than likely get them to start using us for daycare.
Yeah. Or grooming, especially when you have dogs that need that consistent every 6-week grooming appointment. It's a good way to get.
Sorry. Susie was asking, how do you track the meet and greets? We just put time blocks on the schedule. They are coming, so it's not in our POS. Well, I'd highly recommend creating in your POS. You can actually create a service for meet and greet. You can put a $0 charge on it, and you really want to schedule all that. And there's lots of reasons why you should schedule that. Also, you should have some type of information about the client and what their needs are and why they're coming to you, and what personalities their dogs are, what experience your dog has in a daycare or lodging facility. You should really have all that information before you book the meet and greet. So when they do come in, you can be prepared to actually conduct it properly and safely, and talk to them specifically about how your business services are best fit for their specific needs. That's really important. So I would actually create a service in your POS as a $0. Or we really recommend charging for those. So whether it's, $29 or whatever it is that you want to do, but you really need to start tracking that. That's very, very important. Plus you want to gather the customer's information. So if they choose not to have a reservation with you, that you have a way to follow up and keep basically promoting your products and your services to them on the account that maybe they will come back and try you another time. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
All right.
Is
Any other
you
KPIs?
are losing revenue if you don't charge for them because there is, labor involved, right? You've got somebody's time, whoever your evaluator is. And yeah, plus if for some reason they don't pass the meet and greet or the client chooses not to use you, there still can be a conversation there. So whether that's a management level, the cost can really compound. So you want to make sure that you're getting some revenue for, because you're giving advice, right? You're giving them an opinion about their dog. And so, that should come with a fee.
Yeah, and you also want to be tracking how many new customer inquiries that you are getting too. I mean, that's important to know what market conditions are, or if there's the competition that just moved in or existing competition already there. Like, is there a reason why all of a sudden you used to be talking to X amount of new customers and all of a sudden it's dropped this to this number? I mean, that's information for you to know. So you should be tracking whether they book or not. You should always be tracking every single customer that you speak with, and you should be entering them as a profile into your system and collecting their email address so you can reach back out and say hello and welcome them back. Okay.
Now, do you recommend text, call, or email to follow up? I'd say all of the above. I think if, maybe depending on how the exit happened, where they've just chosen to do some different facility, or whether that there was, maybe it was a really shy dog and it didn't seem like the right environment. Maybe you follow up within a week, but maybe you also hang on to that number and follow up 6 months later and see if maybe you gave them some recommendations about, confidence building exercises with their dog, and you want to follow up to see, 4 or 5 months later, is the dog, coming back for a second meet and greet, and they may be suitable for daycare now or for, enrichment lodging. What do you call them, Shantae?
Meet and greets?
Human companion dogs.
Companion dogs. If I was instructing my staff as a system, okay, here's a protocol that we want to follow. I would say first, start out with a call, because look, it's so much easier to just talk to a human and get some information. And I think they would appreciate that actual personal touch. If you can't get them on a call, follow it up with an email. Send them an email. And then after the email, I would also send them a text being like, hey, we really want to, whatever it is that, we miss so-and-so, love to see him back, and another touch point. But those are 3 touch points. And I would do it in that kind of order. But I think you would start out with a phone call and people would appreciate it. That's my 2 cents. All right. Any other questions for today before we wrap this up? If you do want to track your KPIs, we actually have a resource for you to make it easy. So it's called the Budgets Made Easy Toolkit. And what it's really going to do is it's going to help you track your previous year's numbers, and then also make a budget for next year, but also you could start basing your KPIs and your goals on that information. So anything else you want to say about the Budgets Made Easy Toolkit? I'll put it in the chat too.
Yeah, it is eye-opening, and it will definitely give you a much clearer picture of where you could be leaking some money. So, and opportunities where you can, shore things up and really grow your profit. So yeah, it's a good tool.
And it really is a step-by-step course. It's an online course that you could take, and it's step-by-step with video instructions. We have pre-formatted Excel sheets. So really you can just plug stuff in. You might have to, rename them to whatever you call your departments, but it's super easy. When I was going through this, because again, remember, I was an entrepreneurial math proficient person. And so when I started going through Budgets Made Easy, I literally was like watching the videos, listening to what Susan was saying, because Susan's a CPA as well. And I'd pause, fill out my spreadsheet, go back, listen to her next set of instructions. I had to do it that way, but listen, I got through it. And then once I started actually tracking and understanding my numbers, I did not miss a month or a week or however, often. For me, I kind of did it on a monthly basis. And I didn't miss tracking that stuff, because especially when you're growing and you're becoming more profitable, it's fun to look at the numbers, right? So you're like, sweet, I made a bunch of money this month. So I really, really highly recommend it. I put the link in the chat of how you can purchase it. And the last thing I will say is, if you haven't already joined our Facebook group, Grow Your Pet Care Business, please do. So it's a great place to have a forum and just do some networking, get some advice. It's friendly. We just ask that there's no selling, and we want everybody to be positive. So be nice.
Be nice.
And I will put that in the chat as well. All right. So appreciate everybody. Where did that? Okay, I have to find it. Grow Your Pet Care Business. Give me I just erased it. Yeah. Here we go. Okay, I'll put it in the chat. You're welcome, Laura. All right, everybody, have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you next week. Okay, next week we're talking with
from IBPSA. So yeah,
and I think we're going to talk about what's going on in the industry.
The industry, yep.
So I think that's going to be really interesting. I'm really excited for that one. So
she is a wealth of knowledge, so she'll be a fun one to have.
All right, take care, you guys. Bye.
Have a good day.